know, aside from how many weeks it's been, when it's a good time to take your rows out in an emergency situation, you're really going to almost have to put together how many weeks it's been with how your rows feel. So if your rows feel heavy, if you're hitting them with your fingers, if they're getting in the way, if they're past your ears, it's about that time to go ahead and remove them. So you want to make sure that before you jump into removing them, that you have a couple of things on hand. You are definitely going to want to make sure that you have shears. Let's just talk about the types of shears for just a second. There are sharper, more petite shears, and then there are kitchen scissors. So we know that because nobody was really prepared for this, a lot of you guys might have these. If you have something like a cuticle clipper or petite shears, something like these Fiskars, they're a little bit sharper and they're a little bit smaller. These are gonna be a lot easier to use versus the kitchen shears. So if you are using something that's a little bit smaller, you can use both sides of the blade. If you're using something that's a little bit larger, my advice would be to just use one side of this blade, because you're really going to have to narrow down on the thread. You're never going to cut under any circumstances any part of the extension hair or any part of your natural hair. You're only focusing on the thread. Other tools that you're gonna need are a clip, and it doesn't have to be a butterfly. It could also be something like this. So this is a two-person job. Under no circumstance would we ever recommend for you to take out your rows by yourself. We know some of you guys are living by yourselves, you're single, but at the same time, you're gonna have to find a buddy, a friend, a girlfriend who also needs her rows taken out. You're gonna definitely need a buddy. So the reason for that, hello buddy. The reason for that is you can't see what you can't see. You can't see behind your head. So you might be able to take the rows out on the side, but by the time you get to the back, we just don't want you to chance having cut your own natural hair. There's two different parts to this removal. The first part we can help you with through this video. The second part we cannot. So each row is held on with beads and thread. So we are going to be showing you how to cut the thread to remove the row. The beads will end up staying in your hair. This will not pose any threat to your natural hair. It will not damage your natural hair. The only thing you really have to be careful of is to not snag the beads. So the beads being inside of your hair will just continue to grow out. Will they be annoying? Yes. Will it be slightly irritating and very convenient to just go up and pick them? Probably, but don't pick them. Don't pick them. You want to make sure that the heaviest part of the extension, which is the hair itself, comes out of the hair, which it will very easily. This removal should not take more than about 15 to 20 minutes. We know a lot of you guys have 1, 2, or 3 rows. Really just take your time. I think we all have a lot of it right now. And just make sure that you're following this instructional video step by step by step. And lastly, once you get your rows out, you want to make sure to keep them labeled. You do not have to have anything fancy, but just remember, if you have 3 rows or 2, which one went on the top and which one went on the bottom. Don't fret if you can't. It's pretty easy for us to figure out which one was which, but in a perfect world, you would just take a sticky note or like a little label and just put it on the row, like this was my top, this was my middle, this was my bottom.
What you're gonna do is you're going to find the string, right? So when you move your row, you can kind of see where the beads are and where your row is. What you're looking for is the string that's connecting the beads to the row. So if you can see kind of in between my busted nails, that string right there, that's what we're gonna cut. So I want you guys to be really, really conscious of your natural hair. You always wanna start at the end bead, which is your anchor bead, the very first one. Doesn't matter which side, just as long as it's the first bead. And you see the string is completely separate from everything else, that's what you're gonna cut, so right there. As you cut, it'll start to kind of like move and separate, which is good, that's what you want, so you can see what's string and what's hair. So you see that little piece right there. Also gonna cut that. That is what it should look like. Then you're gonna move to the next bead, and you'll notice that it starts to kind of pull apart. You'll pull away any of your natural hair, kind of put your finger under the string that you're about to cut so you can see it clearly. You can pull away any hair, Okay, save every baby you can and pull. As you go, you'll start to kind of see what it looks like. My finger's underneath. I'm just gonna clip that string. Sometimes your hair might get caught in the stitch. That's okay, it's normal. You can, where you see that little piece of hair, you can cut these strings as well. We don't really want you to cut the strings that are here because that will start to separate your row. But in order to get the hair, your natural hair out of that, you just cut those and it slips right out. So don't be afraid if it's like, oh my gosh, how do I pull that out? You don't have to. You can cut these seams, just try not to cut all of them. You know what I mean? That's like your last resort if you notice that it's sewn in. Like this one here, I can just kind of like pull that out. But if you see that it's a lot of hair, know that that's an option for you and just keep going. All right, you guys, so now we're at the very end bead. I want you to remember as you're taking it out, make sure you're holding it and not just letting it drag, right? You don't want to have that much weight on one bead. And then I'm gonna go and kind of pull that a little bit so I can see where I'm gonna cut. This one's always gonna be really close. When you see that loop, that's your last cut there. And then you have a row. You also have a beautiful row of beads in your hair. This is normal. This is what it's supposed to look like. When your row is out, you're going to just kind of fold it. Remember to label it, right? The one on the bottom, you're gonna label the bottom, so the one closest to your neck. And then as you go up, it will be middle and top. So the top will be the one that's on the crown. You don't have to have like a fancy schmancy clip, but we got them, so I'm gonna use them. Bottom. That's a great way to store these, is just stick them in a Ziploc bag. And that's it, guys. Row removal.